Drake Caldwell stepped off the human starship and into the grand hall of Soriat. The polished floors gleamed under alien lights. Tall pillars carved with exotic glyphs rose to a high ceiling. Servants in iridescent uniforms lined the path. Drake held his breath. He was the first human envoy to stand before Queen Mara in over a century. The queen sat on a throne of crystalline metal. Her skin had a soft violet tone that caught the light. 2 long ridges framed her face. Her eyes were sharp and cold. She wore a simple crown of living vines that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. Drake bowed deeply, as custom demanded. He spoke in measured tones. "Your Majesty, I come with greetings from Earth. We seek peace and friendship." Nyara did not rise. She did not speak. Only her eyes watched him. A tense silence filled the hall as Drake waited for her verdict. Friendly ambassadors would smile or nod. A hostile ruler would dismiss him. But Nyara offered neither. Court eyes turned to Drake. Gasps and murmurs spread. Even the crown prince, Nyara's stern eldest son, stared with surprise. Drake felt sweat form at his brow. He hoped his calm would not betray his fear. At last, Nyara lifted one slender hand. Servants brought forward a heavy bronze cup carved with strange symbols. She stared at it, then at Drake. Without a word, she raised the cup in a slow toast. Drake mirrored her gesture. He drank. The bitter liquid burned his throat. He straightened as he placed the cup on a silver tray. A court official stepped forward and spoke in clipped tones. "Your Majesty will hear your proposal at once." Drake followed the official through corridors that curved like living vines. Guards watched him with unmoving faces. He felt their power in every step. Finally, he reached the council chamber where discussions would begin. The doors closed behind him. In that moment, Drake understood the weight of his mission. He carried not only hopes from Earth, but the fragile chance to end a war that had scared both species. He thought of his crewmates training for months to learn Jury culture. He thought of millions of humans who wanted a future free of conflict. The doors before him opened again. Nyara rose to greet him. Her violet eyes were softer beneath the glowing crown. Drake bowed once more. Then, even as she regarded him with caution, he sensed something new in her gaze. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was hope. Drake stood upright as the queen approached. The soft hum of alien machinery echoed through the hall. Panel walls pulsed with life, reacting to their presence. He recalled the human flag sewn onto his uniform. The weight of it reminded him that he was not alone. Drake noticed small movements among the Jeri nobles. Some leaned forward. Some whispered to each other. Their faces held wonder. He realized this moment could change everything. With a steady breath, he prepared to speak again. Just hours after his tense meeting with Queen Nyara, Drake Caldwell was summoned to the heart of Soriat's life support complex. A loud klaxon rang through the corridors. Red lights flickered on the smooth, pale walls. Engineers in bioluminescent suits scrambled around a massive machine, the planetary bioreactor that produced breathable air for the entire city. Drake followed a narrow walkway above the reactor's cooling chambers. He saw jets of steam bursting from cracked pipes and sparks flying near control consoles. The air was thick with heat and the sharp scent of ozone. Below, a pool of rising water threatened vital circuits. Panic showed on the faces of the Jeri engineers as they shouted orders in rapid, clicking tones. Without hesitation, Drake stepped forward. He raised his voice above the din. "Let me help," he called. The nearest engineer turned, startled, then narrowed his eyes. To them, human meddling in sacred technology was unthinkable. He shook his head and pointed at a flickering gauge. The engineer gestured urgently for Drake to stay back. But the crisis was too grave. A slip, they said, could flood the reactor with coolant and shut it down permanently. That would starve the city of oxygen within hours. Drake clenched his jaw. Drawing on years of Earth's biotech training, he knelt by an open maintenance hatch. He scanned the interior with a compact analyzer from his belt. Data scrolled on the device's screen. translating Jerry technical readouts into human terms. He studied the results. The coolant pumps were overloading, sending too much liquid into the reaction chamber. At the same time, one of the plasma injectors had misaligned, causing pressure to spike. Drake tapped commands into his analyzer, balanced the pump output. He directed in clear English, redirect 60% flow through the secondary circuit. Realign injector 3 by turning the regulator valve counterclockwise 2 clicks. The engineers stared. One managed to echo. Secondary circuit. Drake nodded and pointed to a series of blue-lit conduits. They hurried to follow his instructions. Sparks crackled dangerously, but Drake remained calm. He crawled along a graded platform to reach the regulator valve. His gloved hand turned the wheel precisely. Within moments, the reactor's tremor eased. The red warning lights dimmed to steady amber. The steam hissed less fiercely. Engineers adjusted dials and watched pressure readings fall back into safe ranges. Finally, the alarm silenced. A chorus of relieved sighs rose around Drake. He straightened and wiped sweat from his brow. Some engineers bowed their heads in respect. Others exchanged awed glances. A young technician touched Drake's shoulder, whispering thanks in halting English. Drake offered a modest smile and patted the technician's arm gently. Above them, behind a reinforced observation window, Queen Naira watched in silence. Her violet eyes were thoughtful. For the first time, she saw more than a simple envoy. She saw a human who could save her people from certain disaster. When Drake emerged from the reactor chamber, the corridor fell quiet. The engineers parted to let him pass. As he reached the end of the walkway, Naira stepped forward, her presence commanding yet softer than before. She inclined her head in a slight nod of approval. Drake bowed deeply. Though still cautious, Naira's posture held a trace of respect. In that moment, the gulf between them narrowed, bridged by trust born in a heart of crisis. Soriat's lights shone steady once more, and hope took its first breath. After the reactor crisis, word of Drake Caldwell's skill spread quickly through Soriat's halls. He returned to the grand court under the glow of living vines, his uniform still marked by traces of soot and steam. Courtiers paused in their duties to stare as he passed, and even guards straightened, their usual rigid posture softened by proud glances. Drake felt the weight of eyes upon him, but held his head high. He had come as a humble envoy, yet now the hive buzzed with talk of his bravery. Whispers raced through the carved corridors. The human saved us. The human understands our machines. Each murmur strengthened the fragile hope that peace might be possible. In the council chamber, Queen Naira sat upon her crystalline throne. She watched Drake approach, her violet gaze curious. Around her, advisors hovered with maps and data slates, eager to hear her judgment. The room's air thrummed with tension. This was their chance to decide. Trust the human envoy, or send him away before he caused more trouble. Drake knelt before the queen in the formal gesture of respect. He waited patiently while her servants arranged the meeting table with fresh waters and glowing data screens. At last, Naira spoke in a measured tone that carried both authority and newfound interest. "Drake Caldwell," she said, her voice echoing in the chamber, "you have done more for Xoriad in a few hours than many of my own engineers in years. I must admit, I did not expect such competence from a human." Drake bowed his head. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only wish to help your people and build a lasting peace." A murmur ran through the advisors. One elder, a scholar with silver-tipped antennae, cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, might we hear more of Earth's engineering? Our bioreactor designs could benefit from human methods." Naira's eyes flicked to the scholar, then back to Drake. She inclined her head. "Explain, envoy. Show us how your world solves these problems." Drake rose and stepped closer to the central table. He tapped a tablet in his hand, projecting a three-dimensional schematic into midair. The hologram displayed a compact design of modular pump cores and adaptive feedback loops. He pointed to sections and described each component in clear, simple words. how sensors measured pressure, how algorithms balanced flow, and how safety redundancies prevented overloads. As he spoke, Naira watched him with keen attention. Her lips curved in a faint smile when a particularly clever human solution appeared. The court scribes recorded every detail, their styluses dancing across light-sensitive tablets. The scholar beside Naira asked questions, and Drake answered patiently, never raising his voice. When the presentation ended, a hush fell over the chamber. Then, Naira stood, her figure tall against the pulsing wall panels. "Your knowledge is impressive, Drake Caldwell. If we share technology and understanding in this way, both our worlds will grow stronger." Drake bowed deeply. "I would be honored, Your Majesty." Behind Naira, the Crown Prince placed his hand on his heart in a solemn gesture of respect. Other nobles exchanged bows and nods. For the first time, Drake felt that the gulf between human and jury might truly be bridged by mutual respect and shared purpose. As he left the chamber, Drake glanced back at the Queen. In her eyes, he saw something new, not only relief but admiration. And in that silent moment, he realized that the seeds of real friendship had begun to sprout in the unlikeliest of places. Queen Naira summoned Drake Caldwell to a private council the next morning. He followed silent guards down a twisting corridor lit by soft bioluminescent vines. The air smelled faintly of ozone and sweet pollen. The corridor opened into a quiet chamber lined with curved glass windows overlooking Soriat's glowing cityscape. Naira sat behind a low desk carved from living crystal. No advisors waited. It was just the two of them. Drake bowed, then rose to stand at attention. He studied the Queen's face. Her violet skin looked pale in the cool light. Her eyes held a question he could not yet answer. "Drake Caldwell," Naira began, her voice gentle but firm, "you have shown skill and courage. But tell me, why do you risk so much for a people who once fought against yours?" Drake took a steady breath. "Your Majesty, Earth and Soriat share a long history of conflict. But I believe in a future without war. I have seen what cooperation can achieve. My people want peace because we know the cost of hatred." Naira leaned back, crossing her slender arms. "Idealism is a luxury of worlds that have never faced extinction. Why should I trust human promises over my own experience?" He met her gaze. "Because trust is a choice. It grows when two sides decide to work together. I offer technology and friendship. In return, I ask for an honest chance to prove ourselves." The Queen regarded him in silence. Outside, a quiet hum of flying transports drifted by. Finally, she stood and walked to the window. "Show me," she said, not looking at him. "Show me you can keep your word." Drake stepped forward. "My captain is ready to share ship designs that can strengthen your fleet defense. My scientists can adapt Earth medicine to treat your hive diseases. But first, we must sign a mutual treaty." Naira turned, her expression unreadable. A treaty must be balanced. If it benefits one side too much, it will breed resentment. She tapped a slender finger on the desk. "What do humans seek in this treaty besides friendship?" Drake chose his words carefully. "Access to your world's unique resources, rare biometals and energy crystals, in exchange for sharing Earth's data networks, agricultural methods, and governance advice. More importantly, we offer open cultural exchange and joint research." The Queen considered the proposal. "Your demands are fair," she said at last. "But I must test your people's resolve. Hostility still simmers in my own court. Some nobles will reject any human presence." Drake nodded respectfully. "I understand. Conflict in politics is natural. Let me meet your council. Let me answer their concerns, face to face." Naira's lips curved in a slight smile. "Very well. I will host a full council session. You will present your terms. I expect forthright answers to hard questions. Are you prepared for that?" Drake's chest tightened. This was his greatest challenge yet, but he spoke with calm confidence. "I am ready, Your Majesty." She inclined her head, then signal to a pair of guards. Return at dusk. We begin negotiations. Fail or succeed, you will have my honest judgment." Drake bowed deeply. As he left the chamber, he felt a mix of determination and anxiety. The real test of diplomacy lay ahead, but he believed that clear words and honest intent could break the longest-standing barriers. He glanced back once to see Nyara watching him, her expression thoughtful. In that moment, their fates intertwined more tightly than any treaty, shaped by choice, trust, and the daring hope for peace. Late one evening, Drake Caldwell stood beside Queen Nyara in the observation tower high above Soriat. Through the transparent alloy windows, he could see the city lights glimmer against the dark sky. Suddenly, the calm was broken by a low-frequency alarm humming through the chamber. "Sensors detect an incoming threat," announced a Jerry technician. He pointed to a holochart on the wall. A cluster of tiny specks, hundreds of them, moved in unison through space toward the planet. Drake leaned forward, studying the pattern. "This is a swarm of autonomous drones," he said, voice steady. "They match old human designs, an AI weapon gone rogue." Nyara's violet eyes narrowed. They were built by humans. Why have they returned now? Drake glanced at her. Sometimes weapons outlive their creators. These drones likely reactivated after centuries. They will consume all energy in Soriat's defenses and then turn the city into parts. The Queen drew a sharp breath. "Then we must act quickly. What do you advise?" Drake straightened. "The swarm uses a distributed command node somewhere in the cloud formation. If we can destroy that node, the drones will deactivate. My ship's fighters can help, but they need an escort." Nyara's crown glowed as she thought. "I will provide Jury dreadnoughts. Together with your squadrons, we can strike the node directly." Within the hour, human starfighters and Jury warships assembled in the orbital docks. Drake climbed into the cockpit of a sleek interceptor marked with Earth's star emblem. He felt the ship's rumble beneath his seat, a familiar comfort. On his left, a Jerry pilot named Korish saluted with 3 fingers. "Ready, human envoy." Korish clicked, his compound eyes flicking with interest. "Ready," Drake replied with a confident nod. "Let's end this threat." The combined fleet leaped into space. Outside the shields, they glimpsed the swarm, millions of insect-like drones that shimmered silver blue. The drones attacked in waves, forcing the Allied ships to weave and dodge. Lasers carved streaks of light through the black void. Explosions blossomed as small fighters fell. Drake's interceptor dove through the fray. He fired guided missiles that punched holes through the swarm's outer layer. Korish's dreadnought followed, unleashing ion cannons that disrupted drone sensors. They fought as a seamless team, human grit and Jerry precision united. At the swarm's core, a larger vessel housed the command node. Its surface pulsed with data streams. Drake banked left, evading a volley of plasma bolts. He locked onto the node vessel and launched a final salvo. The missiles struck true, tearing through its hull. Systems overloaded in a flash of energy. The vessel collapsed inward and then vanished in a silent implosion. Instantly, the surrounding drones lost coordination. They spiraled off in drifting clusters or fell like fallen leaves into the void. The threat was over. Back at Soriat, the city's lights shone brighter than before. Engineers cheered in the reactors, nurses tended to wounded pilots, and dock workers welcomed home the heroes. Drake emerged from his fighter to find Queen Nyara waiting on the platform. She stepped forward, her gait graceful and strong. "You have saved my world today, Drake Caldwell," she said, voice rich with gratitude. "Your courage and skill have proven humans true allies." Drake bowed, though he felt pride swell in his chest. "I only did what any friend would do." Nyara's violet gaze softened. "Then you have earned my friendship and my trust." In that moment, amid cheers and glowing stars, the bond between human and Jerry grew stronger than any weapon. The future they saw shone as brightly as Soriat's restored lights. Dawn broke over Soriat's spired skyline as Drake Caldwell prepared for another day of negotiations and planning. But before talks could begin, a sudden communication crackled through his earpiece, an urgent distress call from a remote mining colony on the volcanic moon of Orcs. Queen Nyara watched the projection with narrowed eyes. A collapse in the lava tunnels, the colony chief explained. Our engineers and workers are trapped. We need rescue teams now. Drake offered a steady nod. Gather the best pilots and rescue specialists. I will lead the mission. Soon, Drake and a mixed squad of human and Jerry flyers lifted off from Soriat's orbital docks. Their dropships glided toward the red, smoky surface of Orcs. Below, rivers of molten rock glowed like flowing fire. The quake-torn tunnels had caved in, and frightened miners huddled near collapsed supports. Drake sat down on a flat plateau near the colony entrance. Sulfurous steam hissed around them. Guards directed the mixed rescue team into heavy exosuits fitted with drilling tools. Drake joined a Jerry officer named Tilara, whose mandibles twitched with tension. Follow my lead, Drake said calmly. We clear one section at a time. They advanced into the dark tunnel, the exosuit's lights cutting through thick ash. Dust fell like rain. The distant roar of shifting rock echoed through the passage. At a narrow turn, a sudden tremor shook the ground. A large boulder cracked free and trapped Tilara's leg beneath its weight. Tilara, Drake shouted, skidding back to her side. He knelt and placed a stabilizer support under the fallen stone. The boulder weighed half a ton, but the stabilizer's hydraulic arms groaned as they lifted it just enough. Tilara gasped in relief. Drake trained his exosuit's tools on the rock face, cutting through hardened lava sealant. Sparks flew in the dark tunnel. Finally, Drake pried the boulder free. He helped Tilara to her feet. Thank you, human, she said, her voice low and shaken. I thought I would not see home again. Drake offered a gentle hand. You're safe now. Together, they guided the miners through winding corridors toward the surface. Some workers wept as they saw friendly faces, Jerry and human rescuers side by side. When they reached the open air, the sun's light felt warm and hopeful. Back on Soriat, word of Drake's rescue spread quickly. Queen Nyara studied the reports, and her violet eyes shone with respect. She called for Drake to meet her in the council courtyard, where living vines formed an arch above a polished stone table. Drake bowed as Nyara approached. You risked your life for my people today, she said. Your courage and compassion have proven that trust can grow even in the hardest trials. Drake straightened. Trust is earned when we act without fear, when we put others before ourselves. Nyara smiled softly. Then you have earned the trust of Soriat. She paused, her gaze thoughtful. Soon, we will face new challenges, but now know that you stand not alone, but with my full confidence. In that moment, under the glowing vines, Drake felt a deep bond form between him and the jury. He realized trust was not a single act, but a path built step by step, through crisis, through courage, and through shared hope. In the soft glow of Soriat's evening lights, Drake Caldwell found himself walking through the palace's Hall of Records with Queen Nyara. The corridor walls were lined with crystal panels that displayed living data, archives of Jerry history, art, and science. But tonight, Nyara led him not to state files, but to a secluded alcove at the hall's end. Drake stepped inside. The small room was darker, lit only by a single holoprojector in the center. Nyara touched the control panel, and a warm beam of light formed a floating gallery of human images. He saw Earth's blue oceans, forests painted in fiery autumn hues, and cities lit like stars at night. This is your world, Nyara whispered, voice soft amid the silence. I have seen battlefields and bioreactors. I know your strength, but I have never known your art. Drake nodded. Art shows a people's soul. These images speak of hope, wonder, and life. The holo gallery shifted. Now a human family sat at a simple wooden table, sharing a meal. A child laughed, her toy spaceship glowing under the lamp. Drake smiled at the memory. "My grandmother took this photo," he said. "She believed life was worth celebrating, even in hard times." Nyara watched the family scene, her expression thoughtful. The soft living vines overhead pulsed in sympathy. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke, her voice quietly vulnerable. "I have never known family like this. I have duties to my hive, my crown. Loneliness has been my constant companion." Drake stepped closer. He did not reach out to touch her. Formality forbade that, but he met her gaze. "A leader's burden is heavy," he said, "but you need not bear it alone. You have allies, friends." Nyara's eyes shimmered. She looked away, toward the floating images of children playing in a green meadow. "I sometimes wonder what it would be like to simply live, to laugh, to love without duty." Drake felt a gentle ache in his chest. "That life is possible," he said. "It begins when we choose it. You have given me trust and friendship. I hope you will find happiness in return." Silence fell as the holo gallery faded into starfields. Nyara stepped forward and placed a slender hand on the projector's smooth surface. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply as if making a silent vow. When she opened them, the Queen's usual reserve had softened into something new, something like hope. "You have shown me strength in crisis," she said quietly. "You have taught me trust through trials. Now you teach me what it means to feel joy." She turned to Drake, her expression earnest. "I want to know more of your world, and of your heart." Drake bowed his head slightly. "I would be honored to share it, Your Majesty." Together, they left the alcove. As they walked back through the Hall of Records, the living vines overhead pulsed in gentle rhythm, as if celebrating the new bond between human and queen. In that moment, the walls seemed less like archives of history and more like passages to a shared future, one where duty and desire could grow side by side. Under the alien stars, Drake and Nyara discovered that beyond alliances and treaties, the truest connection was born from understanding one another's hopes and fears. And with each step deeper into friendship, they took another toward a world where love could flourish as freely as peace. Night had fallen over Xoriat when the AI remnants returned for one last attack. The sky above the city's outer wall shimmered with hostile drones, scarred fragments of the swarm that had once threatened extinction. Alarms blared as red warning lights bathed the streets in urgent glow. Drake Caldwell stood atop the southern rampart, with Queen Nyara at his side. Below them, Jerry infantry formed ranks behind bioshield generators, their segmented armor reflecting the alarm lights. Human engineers raced to bolster the field defenses with portable energy nets. Nyara's violet gaze swept the horizon. "They will strike at the wall's weakest point," she warned. "If they breach here, the entire hive falls." Drake nodded, gripping the rail. "Then we hold them off, together." He tapped his comlink. "Teams Alpha and Beta, focus fire on the incoming cluster at Sector 7. Engineers, bring the nets online." Moments later, ion turrets roared to life. Streams of charged bolts slammed into the first drone wave, tearing metal limbs from their bodies. Yet the AI remnants adapted quickly, shifting formation and sending smaller swarms in a flanking maneuver. Below, Jerry soldiers fired crystalline rifles that glowed with blue energy. Human sharpshooters on the battlements picked precise targets, their rounds disabling the drone's core processors. Still, the sheer number of machines pressed ever forward. A tremor ran through the wall as a heavy payload drone crashed into the base. The concrete-like material cracked, dust pluming into the night air. Nyara drew her ceremonial blade and leaped down to the breach, her movements swift and assured. Drake followed, drawing his sidearm. Inside the breachstone, fractured drones swarmed the narrow corridor. Nyara cut through them with graceful arcs of her blade, each strike fracturing a drone's spherical body. Drake covered her flank, firing controlled bursts to clear the path ahead. "Keep moving," Nyara called, her voice steady. To the generator chamber. They charged forward. A giant maintenance door barred their way. Drake planted an explosive charge at the base, while Naira held off the advancing drones. The device detonated with a bright flash, and the door slid open. Within the generator chamber, a lone engineer worked at the main console. Sparks flew as the final AI node attempted to override the city's power grid. Drake sprinted to the console and yanked out a glowing data rod. The console sparked and died. Instantly, the remaining drones stuttered and fell inert. Outside, the city's walls stood firm. The outer sky cleared as the last shards of the swarm drifted away into darkness. A deep silence followed the alarms, broken only by distant cheers and cries of relief. Drake turned to Naira, who had sheathed her blade. Her violet eyes shone with pride. "You did it," she said softly. "You saved Soriat once more." Drake offered a weary smile. "We did it, together." Back on the ramparts, human and Jerry forces mingled in celebration. Engineers congratulated infantry. Sharpshooters clasped each other's shoulders. Above them, the Queen lifted her hand in a solemn salute to the city. In that moment of victory, Drake realized the deepest bond was forged not in calm halls or private alcoves, but in the heat of battle when hope and courage stood between life and oblivion. Under the alien stars, human and Jerry hearts beat in unison, ready to build their future on the foundation of this shared triumph.